Hello students, in this lesson we're going to be designing a box that uses the finger joints that we've been practicing for each of the four corners. On the screen at the moment I have an example box. This box is 300 millimeters in the long direction. It is 200 millimeters in the shorter direction on the side, and it's 140 millimeters tall. It does also have a 3 millimeter base on the bottom, but that's not critical for right now. It's using finger joints, as you can see, on all of the four sides. Okay, so that's an example of the sort of box we might be designing here. I also have a second box if I just move across a little bit. This is also another box. In this case, it's only 200 millimeters on two sides, 140 still tall. It's still using the same finger joints and it's got a similar base on the bottom. The reason I'm showing you two boxes is that not only are you going to design the box with the finger joints, you actually have to design the size of the box. So what I'm going to do is jump into a different SketchUp for a moment and just talk about this piece of material. This piece is 1000 millimeters long, otherwise known as 1 meter, the 140 millimeters and also 19. Why this is important is that you are going to begin with a single piece of wood of this size. So you're going to be given a single piece that's 1 meter long by 140 millimeters in height and 19 millimeter thickness. And that is the entirety of the wood that you will have available to do the outside four edges of your box. So every piece that you make, all four of those pieces have to be made from this piece of wood. Now, it will technically be a tiny bit larger than 1 meter just to allow for the thickness of the cut lines, which when we're doing the design here in SketchUp, of course, is perfectly small, so we don't have to worry about that here. But when we do the real piece, you'll be given an extra sort of few millimeters just to make sure that when you cut those four pieces, you don't change the measurements. But let's go from here. It's got a maximum of 1 meter in length. So if I jump back to the previous one, what you'll be able to work out, if I just go across a little bit here, if I look at the four sides, again, not worried about the base, 300 millimeters, and I've got two of those, so that's a total of 600 millimeters, and then 200 millimeters here on both sides, a total of 400. So of course 600 and 400 is 1000, meaning that I can get all four of those sides cut from my 1 meter of wood. So this box design would be perfectly valid. Also the height is 140, so of course that fits in with the piece of material that we're being provided. If I look at this second box, it's 200 by 200 and all four sides are the same. So that means I'm using 800 millimeters of wood. So in fact, I would have some left over wood if I designed this box, and that would also be perfectly okay. If, however, let's say I designed a box that had sides of 500 long and 200, well, that would be too much. That would be 1400 millimeters, more than the wood that I have available. So you need to design a box that is going to be no more than 1000 millimeters in length of wood. And if you want to go lower than 140, you certainly can. I've stuck with 140 just because that's already the size of the wood in height and it's less cutting to be done. But if you wanted to make a lower profile box, then you would be welcome to do that. So how are we going to go about designing this? Firstly, let's jump into SketchUp. As usual, we can get rid of the little person, and most importantly, double check our measurements, make sure that the length in units are millimeters and 0.0. Pop that out of the way. Now, I'm going to go and think about this on a piece of paper maybe. So I know I've got 1000 millimeters in total. That's the 1 meter length. So I work out what lengths I want my box to be. So you're basically looking for 2 long sides, 2 short sides, or any combination of those to make sure that you have no more than 1000. And what I'll do is I'll simply, for this video, remake this first one. So 300 millimeter long sides, 200 millimeter short sides. So let's have a look at how I would do that. I'm going to start by drawing the rectangle, and I'm going to draw it on the thin side of the wood. So instead of drawing the flat side as if it was lying down, because I know I want to lift them up and stand them up, I'm going to start with the bottom measurement, if you like. So this is going to be 300 19. So it's going to be 300 long, 19 wide. Press enter, and there it is. Zoom in, of course, to see it. And then I'm going to bring it up to be its height of wood, so 140. So that's going to be one of my sides. The second thing I'm going to do is draw the short side going off this way. So again, I'm going to do it in a similar way. I'm going to start by drawing it in the direction I want it to go. And again, I'm going to start with the bottom so I don't have to do an extra rotating. So in this case, it's going to be 19, 200. And there it is. And I'm going to also pull that up to be 140 millimeters tall. So essentially, I've got my two main pieces. I've got the long piece and I've got my end piece. The other two, of course, are just duplicates of this. There's going to be one more long one and one more end piece here. So I know that if I make this into a component, each one, and then I go ahead and do my finger joints, and then I simply duplicate each of these pieces, I don't have to do the work twice. And that's what I'm aiming to do here. Now, before I go and do my my components, I'm going to do the finger joints first in this case, just to save having to double click inside them. Now, the finger joints we should know by now because we've done some practice on this, but we're going to use our tape measure and we're going to come in from the edge 19 millimeters. Remembering it's 19 because that is how thick the wood is. This part here, which is 19 millimeters wide, is going to slot into the gaps that we make here and vice versa. So we want to make sure it's 19. And I'm going to do that on both pieces at the same time, just so I'm doing sort of one action at a time, just like I've taught you to do when you do the real piece of wood. If you're only thinking about one action at a time, you're less likely to make a mistake. So from there, I can join that with a real line now. So let me draw in with my pencil, a real line, rotate around and do the same on this piece. Because we're going to want a real mark that we can eventually cut out. I think that one was drawn incorrectly. Let's check that a bit more closely. I'm having a little trouble connecting for some reason. There we go, intersection, that's what I'm looking for. That's what I want. So now that I've drawn those with a pencil, I can rub out those construction lines. I don't need them. And now I need to think about my my divisions for the fingers. Now, the height here is 140. We've talked about that we should have a minimum of 4 divisions to allow for good connection. So I could start with that. And if I do 140 divided by 4 on my calculator, I'll find out that is 35. Now, if you want to have more divisions in your finger joint, you're certainly welcome to do so. I would suggest trying to find an even number if possible, but I'm going to stick with 4 divisions for the moment. So again, I'm going to take my tape measure, and from the top, I'm simply going to measure down the 35 millimeters that I worked out, typing the value in and pressing enter to make sure I get exactly right. I need to do that 3 times, of course, and the last one, if I wanted to measure, should take me down and be 35, and that's perfectly fine. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side here. So coming down by 35, make sure I'm in the right axes would help. So down by 35, down by 35. I didn't do that right, sorry. Try that again. Down by 35. Something's going wrong there. Let me have a closer look. What have I done? Down the axis by 35. That's better. I think I was just on a bad angle there. 35. Right, so they're all in. And again, I'm going to draw those in now with my pencil, but I only need these areas. I'm not going to draw all the way across. So I'm just going to lock in each of those spaces. Now, remembering that if I was doing this in real life, I need to do this on both sides of the wood and all the way around. I don't need to do that here in SketchUp, which is one of the good things about designing on a computer. Certain things are much, much quicker. I just need these areas here. All right, almost finished. Good. Again, I can now rub out my construction lines. I don't need any of those anymore. All right. Next step is to now take out the fingers and the joint. So push-pull tool. Let's knock out this side. And I always suggest you do the same on both ends of the same piece. So if I take out the top one here like I did, take out the top one on the other end. Obviously it's every second one, so do that. So this piece now has all of its fingers joined in, drawn in, and now the other side. Make sure I alternate. So I took the top one away in the long piece, so that means I need to keep it in the short piece, which means I start with the second one coming out like that and do the same on the other end. Right, so same pattern on each end of the same piece and alternating patterns on the alternating pieces. The last thing I do for a bit of cleanup is I do have these lines drawn across there, so I can just clean those up just to make it look better on both pieces. There we go. Being careful not to rub out part of it that I don't want to. All right, we now have our two pieces, but of course they're not components yet. Very important. Now you could have done that right at the start, but I just chose not to. So for this one, I'm going to make a component. I'm just going to call this side 1. Sorry, try that again. Side 1. And this one's going to be a new component, and I'm going to call that side 2. Oops, side 2. There we go. Create. So we've now got two components, so I can move them around properly. So let's take that component and let's lock it in to its position there. So we've got half of our box drawn. While we've got this one selected, let's copy and paste that one and stick it in over here. And again, let's lock it in place. I've seemed to have copied 2, so let's just get rid of 1. And let's choose this one and copy and paste it and then lock it in place too. So there we go. We've got all 4 sides of our box drawn. Now remember, put a base on is really easy. If you just rotate round to the bottom, take your rectangle tool and go from one corner to the opposite corner and draw in a full piece. And because the others are components at this point, it's not affecting them. So I can simply pull that down, put in 3 for 3 millimeters. That's how big the base thickness is. And there you go. I have a base piece as well. And if I'm smart about it, I will also turn that into a component. So let's just grab all the bottom of it and make that a component as well. There we go, make component, and that's base. And it's done. So now we have a fully designed box that has 4 sides, 2 long ones, 2 short ones in this case, and a base. And most importantly, the 4 sides can be made from a single piece of 1 meter or 1000 millimeters. A good idea is to put your dimensions on. So let's take our dimension tool. If you don't have it on your main bar, remember 3 dots to find it. Dimension tool's there. And when we put it in, we're measuring from edge to edge. So this corner to that corner, 300 millimeters, perfect. And this corner to that corner, 200. So 300, 300, 600, plus 200 is 8, plus 2 is 1000. So we can fit that into our wood properly. So that is the idea of this box. Now, again, you can pretty much design any box so long as I said before, it has to come from this original piece of wood. So you can do any length sides you like so long as the total length doesn't exceed 1000. You can cut the height down. So if you don't want to be 140 millimeter high sides, you can go to 70 or 80 or whatever else. That is entirely up to you, again, so long as it fits within the 140 originally. And remember, you will have to do 4 finger joints in it. So I suggest you think about that before you make it too low. And of course, a 19 millimeter thickness. We can't really do much about that. So again, take that into account when you think about the size, but that's the most wood you will have available. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to fully design your box. And if not by the end of the lesson, then you definitely need to complete it before our next double lesson so that we are ready to build and ready to go straight away. Thanks very much and good luck.